This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Not that atheists can actually go to camp this summer, but if they did, they might be singing this.
'Cause the evolution never ends. It just goes on and on, my friend. Some creature started changing and stopped knowing what it was. And we don't have proof, but we choose to believe it because evolution never ends.
Oh, the joy of being an atheist, the songs and the memories the kids have when they leave atheist camp.
A cosmic accident. Yes, we are. A cosmic accident. Yes, we are. A cosmic accident. Yes, we are. Oh, no. There's no God.
A little scary. That's a memory for you. One that we really shouldn't have relived, but we did anyway, as this is the last day of, I think we should just call it 20 years. That just sounds better. Like we should get a watch or something for this. Tony, Joey, and I together. They're going to be staying in Minnesota while everything happens here in sweltering Atlanta, and I am going to miss these two guys more than I thought I was. It's sort of, you're like a pair of socks. No, that's not a good analogy.
No.
They're like a comfortable robe that you just put on. Two friends.
No, don't go there either.
No, that's not good either. Warm glass of
Or
milk.
more like an addiction you can't kick.
That's a rash. I think
you
a
are.
rash is
A
probably
rash
best.
works.
It's just there. It won't go away, and you're reminded of it constantly as you're tempted to scratch it.
Exactly.
Okay, not exactly working either, but the point is, gentlemen, it's been an absolute trip. And every day for the last 20 years, at least 5 days a week, yikes. For the last 20 years, that's got to be thousands of programs together.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the, sadly, last one. And so we are sad here, and things won't be the same. And actually, though, when you think about it, that might not be the worst thing.
Ladies, do you enjoy receiving candles as gifts? Well, then.
Remember that bit?
Oh,
Man,
no.
there's a gazillion of them that we've got here. Don't worry, we will not pound you with them. Nor will Joey pound you with the sound effects that he found. Nevertheless, taking a trip down memory lane.
Carefully curated over the years.
Carefully curated.
Well, you make it sound all fancy schmancy, but the reality is, there's just sound effects that we never need to hear ever again. So, gentlemen, I thank you very much for 20 years and for always being gentlemen and for being godly brothers and for your patience with me and for demonstrating that three guys, two of whom have baptism really wrong, can still get along together.
Can't let it go.
No. How could I? But truly, I think if nothing else, we have demonstrated that over the years. Now, Tony, you haven't always been a Lutheran, but nevertheless, for the last however long that I can remember, frankly, you've been a Lutheran, and Joey is a
12
Presbyterian,
years, yeah.
and I'm a mutt. But nevertheless, we get along, and that the body could model that more and more. There's nothing wrong per se with denominations. I think it's his patient gift to us because we're knuckleheads and we can just butt heads over things. And so he allows us to huddle together in little groups. But those little groups shouldn't be a closed huddle, because that would be the sectarianism that I don't think God approves of, that we can get along, we can love one another, we can do service together, as long as truth is in the center. If it's not in the middle of it, then you ain't got nothing. You certainly don't have fellowship. But where the essentials are there and you have truth, then you should have fellowship. And I think, gentlemen, if nothing else, that has been one of the greatest joys of doing this with you. And it wasn't really hard. Oddly enough.
No.
It wasn't like, oh, great. Here we go again with Joey and Tony, the Lutheran and Presbyterian. Well, there were a few days. But
Hey,
overall,
I'm delightful, and you know it.
every single day. Your email sent to idea@wretched.org. Be prepared for Isaiah 45:7. The text actually reads, depending on which translation you prefer, I am the Lord, and there is no other. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create calamity. I, the Lord, do all these things. You say, well, that's not so hard. God can control the weather, and so if he wants to send a calamitous storm, he can do that. He's not sinning. But the Hebrew word, I believe, is ra, if I'm not mistaken. Some translations say, I create evil. And the atheists love to just throw that up and go, so there you go, God's responsible for evil. No, he's not. There is nothing in the universe that doesn't exist if it were not for God. Now, we have to be super careful with this, but at the same time, we don't want to kick the can down the street, nor do we want to apologize for God. Evil wouldn't exist if God did not permit it. It would not be on this planet if God ordained never any evil, and it wouldn't be here. You can look forward to that day. When eternity begins, you can expect to not experience evil. You will not experience sin, because God will make sure that it never makes an appearance again. But it's here now. And God, He is the one who is sovereign over all things, and that means evil too. Now the atheist is going to say, well, why doesn't he stop it then? Because God has a greater good in mind because of it. He has a greater goal with evil than we can ever imagine, and that is for us to know God in more of his fullness than we could if we lived in a sinless state. We can know about God's mercy and his patience and his kindness and his forgiveness, and we can appreciate Jesus Christ. You wouldn't be able to do all of that without evil. And so God permits evil so that we can enjoy him more for eternity. Is he responsible for evil? Most certainly not. He does not commit evil. We do, but he most certainly ordains it, which means there is nothing that escapes his attention. God is the one who has permitted evil because ultimately it is for our good and for his glory. You might want to be ready to explain that to an atheist. And incidentally, if you don't have that theology straightened out in your noggin, you would do well to get it figured out, because it is almost certain something bad or evil is going to happen in your life. And you should know that nothing happens to God's children, only for God's children, and that includes bad things. Please note also the difference between what is calamity and what is something that is sinfully evil. God can indeed, if he wants to take out your house with a tornado, that is not a sin for him to do so. It's not. It's his house, it's his wood, it's his electricity, you're his, everything belongs to him, and he can do what he wants with it. He lets us use this stuff, and that ain't a sin. Now, somebody murdering somebody, does God take credit for that? No, he doesn't. All that credit goes to little old us, and because of Jesus, it can all be forgiven. This is what makes grace amazing. Send your emails to idea@wretched.org, idea@wretched.org. I don't think I'm going to do any better with this particular email than I've done in the past. Nevertheless, I'm going to try to give it a go simply because it's persisted. And this is, if you can maybe help me out with this, apparently I have just not explained this well, because people continue to either post or to write. The question, Jeff represents everybody just as good as anybody else does. On the July 27th radio show addressing Grace to You's opening their church, we are confused on obeying the government concerning the wearing of masks and opening churches. Please explain the difference between the government overreaching to keep churches closed and the government mandating the wearing of masks. And again, this seems to be something I am doing a miserable job at explaining. But it's as simple as there's a difference between, say, a speeding law and some sort of white-collar crime law. You'd go, well, they're just different laws. Embezzlement, well, that's a different statute than doing 55 in a 20. It's a different law, and it's in a different realm. For the government to impose a law that you might not like about wearing masks, should they do that or have done that in your town, I don't think that's an overreach. You can disagree and not like it, but it's not an overreach. And they're not telling us, here's the key, to sin. When they get into the ecclesiastical the realm of authority, that's when things get dicey. That's inside of the church. Who's the head of the church? It's not Caesar, it is Christ. And so when they start telling us to do something that would be considered sin, that's when we're given Daniel 6 and Acts 4 and 5 permission to not obey. But not doing church and not wearing a mask, they're just two different things. Now, if you can tell me where my thinking is off, send an email to idea@wretched.org. If you can explain that better, please do, idea@wretched.org, because I'm doing my level best. And as we sign off, gentlemen, I love you both. I am grateful to you both. I thank you both. I am going to miss you both, I think, more than I ever realized. And on behalf of everybody who has benefited from your sense of humor, your wit, your timing, your creativity, your wisdom, on behalf of the tens and tens of people who will miss you too, I say thank you, Godspeed, and God bless you.
Thanks.
And until tomorrow,
It's been an honor.
go serve your king.
Well, thank you, Carol. I can't wait to try some of that low-sodium peppermint lasagna. Sounds delicious. Let's get to the weather, shall we? As you can see, we are going to have a massive warm front moving its way up the eastern seaboard, expecting temperatures upper 90s and low 100s. Unless, of course, you're outside of Christ. Then on Judgment Day, it is going to be hot. Back to you, Carol. Not only hot, weeping, gnashing of teeth. And so thirsty, your tongue's going to be stuck to the roof of your mouth. You're just going to wish for a storm to come through, which you folks down in the South can be expecting on Wednesday.